A warm welcome to all the participants across the globe for Ask the Expert, hosted by All Ladies League and powered by LBN Tech Solutions. I am Meghalai Senthilkumar, All India Chairperson for Digital Transformation, All Ladies League, and I am the host for this evening. Welcome to all of you. A little bit about the very big organization, All Ladies League. All Ladies League is the world's largest all-inclusive international women's chamber and a global movement for the welfare, wealth, and well-being of all by empowering women's leadership. And with connections to 250,000 members and inspiring women across 120 countries, we are among the largest women's network offering the widest outreach for global connections. So we have All Ladies League, which is all, and we have WICI, the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce, we have She Economy, and we have our showcase event, which is the Women Economic Forum. So we've been conducting various Ask the Expert sessions over 2 years now. And today, we are very honored to have the expert speaker, Mr. KS Ravishankar with us. And the topic for today is Family Business Advisory. KSR or KS Ravishankar is a well-known family office advisor who has advised various business families in the Indian subcontinent, Middle East and USA for over 20 plus years. As an entrepreneur, he pioneered co-living in India, co-founded Woodstock Ambience, India's first co-living company. This co-living is a very new age concept and it is really picking up, and he's going to go great guns, Ravi. We are waiting to, looking forward to that. He is the founder, CEO of Forbes Technosis. He has set up new businesses for international brands like Canon and LG in various markets, held CXO roles in Xerox, Forbes, family businesses like Shapurji, Palonji, Pawan Group in Oman. KSR's forte is not only to diagnose problems and find solutions or uncover risks and opportunities, but to help the business family promoter in execution and transition management. He enables business restructuring and growth, mergers and acquisitions, strategic partner acquisition, capital and tax optimization, set up family offices, family boards, holdcos and trusts. He manages family office during transition, coaches family members, promoter and co-founders. So Mr. KSR actually he's not new to All Ladies League. He's been associated with all for several years, and he has helped us with 3 major events, which is the Women Economic Forum Chennai, the Diversity Conclave again in Chennai, as well as the Digital Web, which was held last July, which was a highly successful event. So Ravi has been a source of great support for all these events, and I've seen him speaking at several sessions, either as at a panel discussion or as a moderator, and I must tell you, he's quite a speaker. So I promise this session is going to be great. You will have several takeaways at the end of this session. So welcome to this Ask the Expert session, Ravi. We are so happy to have you here. And
thank you so much.
So happy to have you
Thank
here.
you so much.
And,
my pleasure.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure really to associate myself with all LBN Technologies, yourself, and this huge body of work that you have been carrying on under various platforms. Our Expert is one of which I've followed quite a few sessions. Very enjoyable. Thank you so much. Really honored and humbled to be participating in this program along with Pavitra.
Thanks, Ravi. So moderating this session is another stalwart, Ms. Pavitra Shetty, a very accomplished and apt person for this session. So welcome, Pavitra. All Ladies League and LBN is really honored to have both of you here. Pavitra Shetty is the Director in International Tax and Transaction Services Practice at EY India. Pavitra has advised large MNCs and many Indian corporates on a range of tax and regulatory issues, including investment structuring, group reorganizations, and tax planning strategies. Pavitra also specializes in advising Indian promoters and family businesses on succession and estate planning. So welcome, Pavitra. And before I hand over the floor to you to moderate the session, friends, and after the moderated session, the Q&A session will follow. You can type up your questions in the chat box, and the experts will answer your questions after the moderated session. Pavitra, the floor is all yours, and over to you.
Thank you. It was a lovely introduction. And I really appreciate the opportunity to moderate the session. KS, of course, brings his interesting experiences, and in this 1 hour we hope to share some of these facets about family businesses and how they've evolved over time. Ravi and I would bring that varied experiences, while I bring in the structuring experience, and I've advised families how to structure their business holdings, their companies, to set up trust, to hold wealth. Ravi brings in the other side, which is governance, inducting newer generations into leadership roles, professionalizing management. So it's an interesting mix, and I hope we'll be able to do justice to the next 1 hour that you've been kind enough to give to us. So jumping into the topic of family businesses, I mean, we are living in extremely fast-moving times. We want everything done at the click of a button, be it a hot meal, be it a good night's sleep, a holiday, if you want to hail a taxi, and everything is, has to be instant today. We also have an Elon Musk who's promising us 3 flights to Mars. He wants to ship humans to Mars for a vacation to Mars mega city. I mean, we would have called him crazy maybe many years ago, but today he's ruling the roost. He's one of the richest persons in the world, and and we are facing such rapid changes in our lives. Everything's being disrupted, right? We're questioning the fundamentals of everything. No longer is past experiences, past learnings any indication of what we are, what's in store for us in the future. I mean, COVID has kind of taught us, it's been a rude shock or a great lesson for all of us that, we don't know what's in store for us. But amidst all of this, right, what remains is that markets continue to be attracted to family businesses, right? We are seeing the Adani group of companies, Ambani's, Eicher Motors, Asian Paints, what have you. So Ravi, with that, I would like to start the session to ask you, what is the relevance of family businesses in this day and age?
So Pavitra, at the outset, thank you very much for agreeing to join this session and help us drive this element of relevance of family businesses and the rest that we are going to talk about. I've had the pleasure of working with you, and it's a tremendous opportunity for me to share this forum and to gain by your insights as much as some of the experiences that I have had in dealing with the subject at hand, family business. So to your question, it's a fundamentally interesting question, even though you lobbied in favor of family business, and rightly so. To keep it tight, there are so many structures today of the types of businesses held by funds and VCs and private equity players and large public held companies across the world. But if you look at the relevance of each of these businesses, they evolved at some point of time due to necessity. And over a period of time, some of those relevances went away. Like, for example, the old joint stock company, no longer relevant, so on and so forth. Now, companies can be established by even a single person in India shortly, hopefully. So these are changes that happens due to necessities of time. But no law and no country has ever touched this evergreen thing called a family business. For teasers, let me give you some examples. The oldest family business was established in 718 AD, close to 1400 years ago. It is still alive. The 56th generation is running that business. It is in Japan, and they run a hotel. But very interestingly, Japan's drink is sake. The top 8 companies are all more than 500 years old. One of them is very small, 42nd generation is running it, and they produce less than 0.3%. Family business, run by a family, the original family. Another one is also a family business, I am told it is the 46th generation which is running it. And this brand manufactures 30% of all of Japan's sake production. This is a company called Ken Bishi Suzo. Ken Bishi Suzo, and they are more than 500 years old. So you can imagine whether it is sake or hospitality, family businesses have been there. So I'm just giving you Japan to give you an example of what I could pick up of another state. A very interesting thing happened last week in Germany. The government has reduced the inheritance tax for family businesses because time has come for them to recognize that 90% of Germany's businesses are owned by families, and almost 60% of the workforce is in family businesses. And Germany has one of the harshest inheritance tax. But for family businesses, they are now going to make an exception and they are going to reduce the inheritance tax. It's due to come anytime now. So it has taken a government to almost fall because the current conservative government almost split on this single issue of the government not addressing the issues and problems of inheritance of family business. So what am I saying? Governments have encouraged, countries have encouraged, and countries have understood that they need to support this universal structure called family business, where an individual starts a business due to his or her visionary understanding of an opportunity, and then subsequent generations carry on doing better and better or not being able to carry it through. So family business is a crux. It's very relevant in today's times and very relevant for India. Almost all the brands that we know, and you spoke about two, Adani and Ambani at A. I will go somewhere in between, B, Birlas, or into T, Tatas, or into M, Mahindras, or somewhere close down to Y and say, Yesdi, which is a bike which we thought had said bye-bye to the world, but it has re-emerged today. So you look at any brand which is well known, it is a family name brand. In India, I mean, Tatas and Birla is 1857, 250 years plus. Tatas is similarly 1860s, off, etc. You have n number of businesses. You have Tamils, and of course, these are the big names that you know, but they were all family businesses and they still are. But family business is a large, overriding, broad terminology we use for many types of holdings or ownership. Tata's is a prime case where the family of Tatas never owned a majority in any of their business ever, and where the Tata family members were never more than 3 people at the best of times running the business. So from a very early stage, they went into businesses where they did very little, and they were in the management, not in numbers. So they did not employ the family at the cost of best talent. So only the best of Tatas could get in, and never more than 3. That was Tatas. On the other hand, I will name a group which is very relevant today in engineering, logistics, finance, automotives, two-wheelers, and then and the like, the TVS group. Now the TVS group is again more than 100 years old. It is a $6 billion group. And this group employs 34 of the TVS family members across 3 generations. But is it nepotism? No. Each one of these members were groomed, were educated, were made to go through the ranks of their respective businesses before they were given roles. And it's not as if all 34 of them are managing directors and CEOs. They are working up and across the corporate ladder. So you see, you have businesses where families own a lot of the stock. There are families that own very little. There are families that run and operate their businesses, and there are those who do not. So all of these put together are still family businesses, as long as we agree that individual member starts a business and then subsequent generations in the family either own the stock or operate and run the business, or they reach the stature where their family name becomes the brand, just like Tata's. So when you have such a ability in a family business to provide to the business, to the market and society, its relevance is unquestionably very high for business. And in just number terms, almost 70% of India's economy and the size of this economy is driven by family businesses.
Right. No, that's a huge number. Yeah.
That is a huge number. And
Yeah.
I'll also tell you one more thing. The top 750 family businesses, 750 family businesses are at a value of $11.3 trillion USD. It's about 4 times India's of 2.7 trillion. So that's a huge 750 families are driving 4 times India's economic size. That's the relevance. That's the relevance.
Mind-boggling numbers. I mean, we're definitely, I mean, there's no taking away that family businesses are here to stay in whatever shape and form. It can be a mom and pop store, it can be a huge conglomerate. I mean, it remains family values continue to run through those groups, and I mean, they can't be. There's no taking away the fact that they remain. We often say this, right? Engines of growth, engines of an economy, and that is here to stay. And like you said, we've seen them through different crises, be it political, or economic downturns. 2008 meltdown. We've seen them through demonetization. We're seeing them living in. So, but in spite of all this, right? We have huge examples of top performing companies. But these family businesses continue to be vulnerable, right? They're more vulnerable than their non-family peers, because we've seen the rift between the Ambani brothers. We've seen the Ranbaxy brothers, the fiasco, and it was all over the papers. We've seen a cafe coffee day, down south, a pioneer in its space. Today grappling post the misfortunes of a very humble promoter. And, because they have, besides the usual business challenges, right, they have to deal with family dynamics, right? An ever-growing, expanding family tree. Each member has his family, has unique needs, and all of this needs to be met. So, navigating through these complex challenges, they still have, and we have examples of families who still managed to do it right and come up on top. So, Ravi, what are those various areas you think that these family businesses have got right, and various areas where family businesses should build strengths in order to sustain and carry forward their family legacy?
Okay, if we are a student of family business history, there are so many things that we should talk about, etc. Like we all know, entrepreneurs who set and then whose families carry on, they are action-oriented people. They have got into business because they do something. They want to create something. They are full of energy. They are risk takers, and they want to deliver something. So when you have such a mix of people who want to do, people who are action-oriented, people who want to conquer the next frontier, and they are naturally risk takers, such kind of businesses, as opposed to publicly held businesses, lot of process and controls and boards and directors and checks and balances, etc., for every decision in such companies. Family businesses which do not have so many shackles and so many constraints and so many processes and on governance models sometimes suffer because of these same qualities that have made them so good. The risk-taking ability, the quick decisions that they do, the passion, the drive, all of that sometimes leads them into areas which causes trouble, and in some cases, it causes those businesses to dissolve, uh, and therefore runs a higher risk in such family businesses. You rightly said some of these are caused by the way we take decisions in family businesses, in our own businesses, if we have to say that. The second thing that causes some issues are, and you touched upon that very rightly, in a family, there is a relationship. And when the families are doing business, there is sometimes, and in many cases, conflict between the relationship that we have with the other member of the family versus the same person as somebody else in the organization who is also in the management or in the ownership or in the running of the business. There is a conflict in that relationship. Is he my brother, or is she my sister, or is she my daughter, versus the difference of opinion on the board between these three directors, as directors, or as somebody who is in charge of manufacturing, and somebody who's in charge of finance, and somebody who's in charge of marketing. And when they are related to each other, it becomes very sticky in the way you need to take a non-emotional decision, and our relationship comes in the way. And this has been historically the reason why some of the names that you put in, which has been in public domain, and we know about the information from the public domain, whether it is the Ambanis, it was due to style of handling businesses. The Singh brothers, again, due to how they foresee, how they saw business and could not agree with each other, are examples where the family ties come in and create issues. So what do they need to do, knowing full well that such things can happen in the course of a family's journey in the business? It can happen in this generation, it can happen in the next. I think there are only 4 or 5 things which, in our experience, what I have seen, what I have experienced, and where I have had the opportunity to advise or to support family businesses, promoters, is A, governance structure. Whether you are a 10 crore business today, or 1,000 crore or $1 billion business, and I don't want to even talk about the $1 billion businesses. I want to talk about the 10 and the 100 and the 200 crore businesses. At this stage itself, in the first generation of this business itself, there is a need for corporate governance. You need to put in certain governance and rules for operation. How will each member of the family behave in discharging their duties in the business or as shareholders? So there are very clear do's and don'ts, and a governance has to be there. 2, it does not matter who the owner is of a business or who are the owners of a business. For a business to run efficiently and for customers to be satisfied, the employees must have clear roles. They must have a clear management which is giving them clear directions, and therefore systems and processes have to be very clear. So good management is required, and good management practices, systems and processes are required. The third is, a business is only as good as the people who are there operating it, which means talent. Families who own businesses should not think that the businesses is a place to park their family members. Instead, if the business is to support the lifestyle of family members, it should have the best talent. Therefore, it is very essential that in family businesses, they look for the best talent, internal or external, and make sure that the talent shortage is never felt in the business, and you do not put in family members at the cost of what is the best thing for the business. I think this is the four things: governance, management systems, the ability to leverage talent, external or internal, and four, to do what is best for the business by removing the relationship that you have with that of what is to be done for the business through a good governance system. I think uh, if these three or four points are there, uh, businesses, family businesses will do well. And I am saying nothing new. This is by studying those successful family businesses versus those who have not been able to be as successful. The difference between the two seems to be these four elements. These
Right.
four elements.
Right. And I mean that's right, Ravi. I couldn't agree more. In fact, I mean, we were talking about those examples of Dabur and CGH, and some of the groups. In fact, CGH is one of the groups that you worked with, and you probably could tell us how some of these areas of where they have focused and ensured they have built their capabilities has actually helped them propel not just the business but family as a whole.
Yeah, great, great point you have brought in to showcase some examples. Uh, let's take a well-known brand today called Dabur, and let's look at how and where they are. For all of us who have known about Dabur, and they are a 100+ year group. They are a very large FMCG business, consumer business, and they have a whole lot of products and sub brands. Dabur Chyawanprash is known in India. Dabur Honey is known in India. Their Odomos, etc. So how did this all happen? It did not happen the way it was envisaged. Dabur, for the first 120 years as a group, had a turnover of 125 crores. It had 125, 130 crores for the first 120 years of its life, till about 1990. Since 1995, when it started on a reorganization spree, and today, Dabur is possibly at 12,000 crore plus, 11,000 crore plus in 2019. How did a 100 crore business become a 10,000 crore business in the 20 years, whereas the previous 100 years it did not? They attribute, Dabur's themselves, the Dabur family attributes it to three reasons. One, after 100 years, the fourth generation Dabur family, Burman family, decided that they need to now have a very clear governance model, a model by which what they will do as the Burman family who owns stocks, who are shareholders of the business, and what they will do or will not do in running the business. So it was very clear to them that if they have to be in the FMCG business, they have to become as big as the big, large multinationals who are there. And therefore 100 to 150 and 200 and 250 crores will take them nowhere. They have to jump to 1,000 and 5,000 and 10,000. They have to do it quickly. For that, they took an internal call and said, it is not us, but a set of external talent led by professionals who are from this, who can take it to scale. And if we have to do this, we should know what we should be doing and we should not be doing. So they set up a governance council. And there is a small, very interesting story to it, which, Pavitra, if time permits, can I share that? If I can.
Go ahead. Yes, definitely. Go ahead.
So in 1995, McKinsey, as you know, McKinsey is a globally acclaimed consulting company. And if you know, in 1995, one of the partners, I can name the partner also because it is in public domain, Mr. Atreya got 4 resumes of 4 people onto his table. Now, in McKinsey is not a recruitment agency, and normally people do not apply unless McKinsey is looking for. So he thought it is 4 resumes which has come for jobs in McKinsey. He went through it and he was quite shocked. because these four CVs belong to four people who were part of Dabur. They were the Dabur family members. So what is four CVs of Dabur family members in there? But along with those four CVs was a small note from the then chairman of the Dabur group, which says requesting him to come for a meeting, but to come prepared after looking at the CV to say what roles could these people play in a future Dabur organization, which will not be led by the Dabur family, but by professional outsiders. You understand what I'm saying? Here is a family which has been running its own business, running a brand which is fairly successful, 100 plus years. On one fine day, an external consulting organization is asked, what do I do with the four members of the next generation? Because we are deciding now not to run the businesses ourselves. They are not saying I'm selling off. No, but they're saying they will not be running. Tell us what are they suitable for. What did it show? It meant that they never took their family business for granted to park their children. And they had taken a decision that they are not going to run the business anymore, because they had taken a decision that they want to have a very successful large business in the FMCG sector. And this size and scale is not possible under their own direct drive and management, operations management. Now, you think all these things could have come overnight? No, it would have come because now history says that they spent over 3 years going through all the things that they wanted to. What is the future? What do they want? What do they want out of this business? To what do they want to do 30 years from now? Why am I telling you this? It all started the corporate governance or the success of Dabur started by somebody, the family, sitting back and saying, what do we want to do with ourselves? Family businesses should do this, whether you are 10 crores or 50 crores or 100 crores. In my limited experience of having handled a few of these, the first thing that they do is they come and talk to you and say, look, these are some of the thinkings that we have. This is what we wish to do. This is what we wish to do to free our next generation. This is what we want to protect our wealth. So they talk about what they wish to do 10, 20, 30 years. And then they say, how do we build the organization which will be supporting this objective of ours? And they will then go and decide to do whatever it takes to create that possibility. Therefore, governance model, that whatever I'm saying now means they set up a framework of what role they will play and what role they will not play. And that's the governance model. Dabur got it so right that what they did over the first 100 years, they did it 100x in the next 20 years. From 123 or 130 crores to a 11,000 crore group. And they built an asset bank of 10,000 crores in the process in the next 25 years. Is simply remarkable. On the other hand, you talked about CGH. CGH stands for clean, green, and healthy. But that is what they turned their entire business philosophy. CGH originally stood for the Casino Group of Hotels. Stood for Casino Group of Hotels, CGH. It was promoted by a gentleman who was a chartered accountant who worked in one of the big four, and who then went back to his hometown, went back to Kerala and started the Casino Group of Hotels in hospitality. From day one, their focus was on promoting ecology, clean and green tourism. Their story is remarkable. They are about 35 years in this business, or 40 years now in the business. The second generation has come over. The first generation of 5 brothers, each of whom took operational responsibility, but after 20 years, each one of them stepped down uh, for either a professional management to take over or for the next generation to take over. They have a mixed breed group of both professional and family, but all very well qualified and trained for their roles. CGH also went through a soul searching. They set up their family council. They got their governance model right. And from day one, possibly because the founder, Mr. Dominic, Jose Dominic, came from a big four accounting background, knew and worked under multinational processes. He set up very sound management systems from day one. And third, CGH in its course of the last 40 years has won many awards for being one of the best employers. That means it hired talent from outside and actually did very well in the hospitality sector in terms of earning those kudos of being a very, very preferred employer. Sorry. So CGH is very close to me, in not only because I've studied that group very closely and had the privilege of have the privilege of knowing some of the family members closely. Is a prime example of a business which from day one decided what they are going to do. They will be in hospitality, and their personal passion was ecology, so they will do clean tourism. So when you go to a CGH resort, whether it is the kitchen or whether it is the rooms, you will find the way they have managed their power, the electricity. They have a lot of solar and they have a lot of renewable electricity. Their water recycling system. It's a pleasure to watch their passion at work. But all of this has come because at the ownership level, they decided what they will do and what they will not do. And their employees stick with them and vote for them because they are amongst the best employers. And the reason is because they have clear management practices. There is a clear role for each of them. So CGH to me embodies the four things that anybody loves. Their investors love them because they have consistently provided very high returns. They are very, very debt free. Their employees love them. At the same time, bring in fresh talent. And as owners, they have bound themselves a governance model which ensures that they do not take decisions which could hurt the business or a day after. So they ensure continuity of a brand equity because they decided the legacy we will give is something which is clean, green, and healthy. And that's the metamorphosis of a casino group of hotels into clean, green, and healthy hospitality brand. So to me, it speaks of the four pillars that we talked about, which family businesses, more than any other type of businesses, need to be watchful for, and which the CGH and the Dabur seems to have done. Good corporate governance, personal governance charter as owners, what you will do, bring in talent and be open to bring in talent from outside, and be very clear that you will have good management systems be able to drive things.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Ram. So I mean that I think put very clearly in terms of what are those structures that needs to be put in place to ensure that the business sustains, right? And clear, very great example, classic examples of where the family has been an enabler of growth, of business. And I mean, we are in this fourth industrial revolution. I think they call it the industry 4.0. And, there's no looking back. The only way, growing is the only way forward. And in times like that, I think inputs and structures like this is what would help businesses sustain. But maybe I'll make I'll give you a tougher question, and I would like you to point out one critical trait, that family businesses must develop, or must implement, to ensure that businesses are always growing. You've spoken about areas that family businesses have to work around to sustain, right? To remain relevant, to sustain. Now, what is that one trait that would help them maintain, remain on that trajectory of growth?
I know you will do the easy bit, allow me to talk and then reel me in. So here is the tough one. That single trait, that one. Let me attempt this, Pavitra, and I will attempt it from as a follower of the family business per se, rather than limit it to my personal experience. So what I have seen over time, whether it was Rothschilds, who were bankers across Europe, across countries in Europe and the US, or whether it is closer at home, one critical thing, and critical from various points of view, critical not only for the success of the business for this year, this quarter, but on a long-term basis that establishes them head and shoulders above anybody, that takes them out of the league where they position and they are seen as somebody head and shoulders above everybody else. That critical factor, I think, is about innovation. I think it is about encouraging innovation in their business. And why am I saying this? Innovation and encouraging innovation. When any business is bound by too many processes and rules and procedures. So one is the need for systems, which we talked earlier. I'm saying that is very necessary, and necessary at the top for ownership to know what they should do and should not. But at an operational level, when a company is bound by too many rules and regulations and ifs and buts and do's and don'ts, etc., it stifles thinking. Ownerships and family businesses that think that way will also get stifled as a result. So the one trait that families should have when they are running businesses or owning businesses is the ability to be innovative, to encourage innovation, and to be always on the lookout for things innovative. So what do I mean by this innovation? Because innovation is being used by everybody constantly, and therefore anybody and everybody will say every description of innovation applies to something or other nicely. So I will say this with respect to family businesses, and in terms of growth that you talked about. How do you keep your family? How do you keep your business growing? And how do you keep it healthy? And how do you keep it in a trajectory where it can fulfill tomorrow's promises? And in that context, innovation comes from three things. In the case, I'll give a case study of innovation. When a small business in the engineering business, forging, they make components, and forging is one engineering methodology by which you make a component. You forge it by usually on metal and alloys to make components. And one such company, which I know, is a company called Bharat Forge. Bharat Forge today is in the second generation, but the promoter, Dr. Baba Kalyani, as he's well known, is in his 70s. When forgings were being done by mom and pop shops in Calcutta, in Raipur, in the outskirts of Mumbai, and in Chennai and stuff like that, he looked at how India could be a producer of forged components for the global automotive market. I'm talking to you 1985, much before liberalization, but not too far off. 1985, is possibly 34, 35 years ago. And at that time, his businesses had reached a stage where it was about 100 odd crores. At the time when his turnover was 100 odd crores, and he has been running the business for 10, 15 years by then, he invested another 100 odd crores. That means he invested as much as his current turnover was. Imagine that you are risking your entire turnover, which means 10 or 15 times the profits that they were making, in investing for creating a very, very large facility. He wanted to become India's #1. And he was trying to do the impossible. What was a mom and pop back-end operation, he was going to make a business out of it in the organized sector. By 1995, he had done it. He was India's #1. Any businessman would have thought about it and said, okay, now I have achieved my goals. Baba Kalyani went on to take Bharat Forge to become the world's second largest forging company. Bharat Forge and in the group of organization that he built today is the world's second largest forging company. A family business of that scale. The only name ahead of him is a German family business called ThyssenKrupp. That's also a family business. ThyssenKrupp, we all know about it. They also make armaments. They make everything. They are the only ones. Bharat Forge, for the first time, long before the IT sector brought so much laurels to India for its size and scale and operation, an Indian engineering company by the name of Bharat Forge was recognized in the global arena in engineering as the world's second largest forgings company, and its clients were every automotive company. Its clients were many of the defense production companies across the world and many other engineering businesses anywhere else. What made Bharat Forge become so successful? It was the innovation of the owner family. It was Baba Kalyani who dreamt big, who wanted not to be #1 in the business size, but wanted to make India one of the largest forgings base for world manufacturing for automotive manufacturing. So he dreamt big. And what did he do? The entire investment that Bharat Forge did, 80% was on automation. Forgings industry was very manual, very labor intensive. His was one of the most automated plants when he started off in the mid 80s to mid 90s for about 10 years. There was nobody to match the automation that they had done in their manufacturing anywhere in the world. And subsequently technologies came in, and even now they are amongst the most automated plants anywhere. And as a consequence, the quality that they were able to support or guarantee made them get those great contracts across the world, whether it was from the American or the Japanese or the Korean manufacturers of automotive products in passenger cars and vehicles, or the defense production from Europe. It was this single factor which drove them. That innovation was unheard of when you move an unorganized industry in an organized scale and you invest money on automation when the entire industry is labor intensive. Was innovation of a different kind. And it took 20 years before people could even catch up. And by then, of course, Bharat Forge had gone on to become many, many things which they achieved ahead of the curve for others. The second bit of innovation that he did, Baba Kalyani, is at the age of 65, when Bharat Forge was already recognized, and he was recognized as one of the greatest of engineering entrepreneurs. And the Kalyani Group was recognized as a great family business. He stepped down in favor of his son, not because his son was ready, not because he was a son who took over MD, but because for 23 years, the son Amit Kalyani had worked in Bharat Forge across all departments, and the board, which had more independent directors and very little of family members, the board decided that he is the best person to take over as the next CEO or MD of the group. So what am I saying? I'm coming back to innovation. And what is innovation? Innovation is ability to think ahead, to think way ahead, not for the next quarter or the next year, but to take decisions which others don't, and have the full faith of why you're taking the decision based on your belief and your dreams. And that is what I'm trying to tell you with Bharat Forge in terms of that single critical factor that sometimes enables one family business or one business to, family businesses especially, to move on. Because very largely, widely held public businesses recourse to a lot of advisory support wherever. Normally, in a family businesses, promoters are lonely people. It's very lonely at the top, is something we have all heard, but they are very lonely people, and they can't go and talk about their issues, their problems, their understanding, etc., to anybody and everybody. So when you are therefore constrained by what you are in terms of tapping into knowledge, very few break that and go outside and think about how they want their businesses to be. And that is where those who can think for themselves and those who break the mold and go and seek with a fresh eye on things, make a success out of it. And all of that I put under this bracket of innovation.
A classic story of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That is what entrepreneurs are.
Growth has adages of Generation X and this current trend of startups. But I mean, you have examples, live examples here from family businesses, and but this is one thing I often say, the really in family businesses, the backbone, right, is not just the promoter, or it's not the wealth that he's created, or it's not even the business, right, not their product, but it's really their value systems, right? And it's their commitment, it's their sense of purpose, their personal values that they bring to the business that keeps these businesses in good stead. And that really that distinguishes a family business from a corporate and a non-family business group. And families are realizing this more and more, and we've seen them wanting to kind of put down and record their value statements so that they're able to pass this on to the next generation. Because really strong if you see today, consumers go by go for products that that represents values, good ethos, right? But all of that is, but when you talk of professionalizing businesses, right, you're talking about more processes, and it's moving away from human values to more structured systems and processes. So that comes to my next question to you, Ravi. How can family business, because you mentioned professionalization is really the way to grow and to scale. How do families imbibe their values into an external talent, and a person who's come from outside? How do they imbibe those values?
Good question, and something that all family businesses are constantly grappling. In fact, if I have to think this through, it is in this area that I have had to spend most of my time in my association with various family businesses, advising them on this. This has been the single biggest concern for family members or promoters to say, how do I ensure as we grow and we become big and as we are now and as we will be tomorrow, how do we ensure that these values that we are talking about, which we practice, how will it continue? This is their foremost worry, actually. Many people call it what is the legacy we will leave, and so on and so forth. But this is what it is. How do I leave this? How do I ensure this value system, the reason for which we are doing this business? And it's a very relevant thing, because if you look at it, I need to go back to a few examples here. Birla's, for example, the reason they established their business, Mr. Ghanshyam Das Birla, in the 1850s, 1857. One of the things that he articulated maybe 5-6 years after they started the business, I don't know exactly when, but it was in his early years. He said this was to make a free, Birlas are going to participate in the creation of a free India. Now, what he meant exactly by this, I don't know, but clearly there was a value system, there was an ethos, there was a thinking, there was an ideal behind the business. He was not talking about making Birla a more profitable business than East India Company or anything like that. There was an ideal attached to society. There was something that he wanted this business to be beyond what it was, whether it was in trading or it was in commodities or whether it was in manufacturing, whatever it might be. I think he was talking about something. And what drove this logic was their value system, that possibly they were talking about contributing to society in some way. The Tatas is an example which many of you know, but I don't know the context. So therefore, I'm going to repeat it even if it is boring. The Tata Group, over the last 25 years at least, if not more, decided to charge royalty from their group companies for the use of the brand called Tatas. Now, on the surface, it might mean very mercenary that you charge your own group companies a royalty. Yeah. And many people can attribute many reasons. But if you go, and it is in public domain, I'll urge you all, whenever you find time, just to go and see the history behind the royalty being charged on Tata Groups. It's a percentage of their profits. You must take a look at it. Where does the money go? It goes to the Tata Trust. Because enshrined in the Tata Group's value system is the fact that all Tata businesses at some level or the other in its structure have a ownership which will lead to the Tata Trust. Not one, but many trusts. And the Tata Trusts are all for charitable purposes. So this royalty that is being charged is going back straight into a pot which is being used for in one of the or many of the or all the trusts. I don't know how that is structured, but straight back for charitable purposes. And charity in Tata Trusts, if you go through the trusts, you will find it covers healthcare, it covers hospitals, it covers education, it covers water, it covers sanitation. I mean, there is not a single area where the Tata Trusts are not doing some fundamentally deep work for the benefit of society, for the benefit of future. So why am I giving you these two examples? It's because there is this imbibing of values. So how have the Tatas imbibed these values into their people? By the structure, by creating some a trust, by creating these charitable works and so on and so forth, right? But how did this all happen? It all happens, if you see it, whether it is the Tatas, Birlas also have these. The TVS have this in a different way, and I'll come to that. TVS one is by example, which is the Tata whom we can say has been on the wrong side of law for anything that you may think is not ethically the right thing or morally the right thing to do. I mean, Tatas are always used as an example of how business behavior should be, or business ethics should be And it is not related to just Mr. Jamshedji Tata or JRD Tata or Ratan Tata. A Tata company is seen to be a good company, right? Exceptions and historical cases are exceptions. Okay, everybody has gone through their test of time, but it's like that. Take TVS, for example. The TVS group is now 100 years plus, and it's the fourth generation. Recently, as recent as December 2020, they signed a family agreement, and I'm not saying this in confidence because it was published, not the agreement, but the news of the family reaching an agreement came in the news, and it is the opposite of Tata's. They have said that any member of the TVS family starting any business under the TVS umbrella will not, such companies or such businesses will not need to pay any royalty to any other TVS group in perpetuity. What are they saying? They are saying whether you are a family member or whether you are an employee who is starting a business under the name of TVS with a TVS family member, TVS trusts you so much, TVS trusts your ethos and ethics so much that you will never have to pay any royalty for the use of the TVS name. So it is enshrined, and I'm giving you now an extract of that document, which is a private document, which says that no member shall ever be charged a royalty in perpetuity. Why are they doing this? Because they are leading by example to say trust is at the heart of everything that we do. Trust is how we deal with our customers. Trust is how we deal with our employers. And trust is how we will deal with each other as family members. So it is leading by example. Second, this family document was circulated to all the members, whether they were 18 years or they had guardians who were less than 18 and their guardians, or the older members, whoever, everybody had a right to that document for over a year, and they all had the right to comment, and all their comments were noted, and finally the document was signed by everybody. It is not as if some lawyers wrote it or a KS Ravishankar was there to advise nice English and we put it all out. No. They trusted the sagacity, they trusted the wisdom, they trusted the thinking, and they trusted the differences of thinking of each member of the family to see the drafted documents and come out with their suggestions, comments, or nothing, or whatever it is, and before the final thing came in. So they led by example. So if you're talking about what is some of those crucial traits, how do I imbibe? How do we imbibe? A bad teacher cannot have good students, right? And like we say, a student is only as good as the teacher is. Yeah, or the teacher is only as good as the student is. It's also true, but we can blame it on technology. We are not yet used to online learning fully. But so example, the TVS group is also known, and this is a group which is close, very well known, widely held, and across India, global markets, and typically in South India. It's the story of a group which set up a business in trust first. TVS was in public transport in a town called Madurai. They ran the public transport, number one. Two, they got into, they were an NBFC, and they were TVS Finance. TVS Finance is reputed not only because it's a very successful, profitable business, but TVS Finance is equal to clear, transparent, value-based lending or financing of wherever they are. And the trucking business is notorious. The TVS came in there and set up TVS Motor Finance, and immediately that sector got respectability because, oh, TVS is there in this motor finance, so everything will be safe and sound. So that's the brand value by example of what they are, that they bring in. So I am saying, what are the things? It is communication. Clearly, that communication is caused on an everyday basis by behaving, acting, and being an example to everybody. So your employees see it every day. You see it in the way you recruit. You recruit for a certain kind of ethics and ethos that you bring into the table apart from competency, transparency. For example, I spent a very short time though, but I spent time in an organization called Wipro, and in the early days of Wipro in the consumer business. And one of the things there was trust. Every rule was known to everybody. It is not as if some knew something and some did not know, etc. All processes are well known. Everybody's rules and responsibilities are well known to everybody, and therefore it was very democratic. A very simple thing like travel did not have hierarchy and category. Whether I am the junior most guy or the senior most person, from point A to point B, if we have to travel, there was no distinction for us. If we have to stay in a place, there was no distinction between. It was very great for me because I was the junior most guy there, and for once I was equal to the boss's boss. And I can tell you, I have gone and done a full day's to retail shops along with Mr. Azim Premji, and we walked in Bombay, in Chembur. It's one of the highlight of the things that I say sometimes. Never once did he say, I'll get in the car and go after the third visit. No. In one of those, because of me, the owner made me stand out for 10 minutes and he stood outside. And after the call, he came out and said, why did he do that? And I narrated him the story. I said, you were in the wrong. He was very clear to say, you were in the wrong because of it. So what I'm trying to say, these are examples I'm quoting of something that happened to me 40 years ago. So look at this example setting that they have all done. Kevin Care is another great example of a South-based, South-headquartered, but nationally known brand of consumer products, FMCG, CK Ranganathan. And this is another example of something, of transparency, trust, everything that you can say. He comes from a family association which can get him almost anything done in any walk of business. For his business requirements, almost anything can be done because of his family connections. I don't think anybody ever talks and he has ever spoken about such connections, ever. Even when it could have been useful and expedient for him to have used that connection to get things through. He is not. And I have a first-hand experience of knowing this. And I can tell you that is no other example of a person who can stand up to do things on the merit of the situation for the business without using those connects. So that's a perfect example. The people in his organization, therefore, do not do any such shortcuts. They did not reach out for connects. Networking is different. But this is what I'm trying to say, that if professionalism is becoming crucial, etc., how do I give my legacy? How do I make people of the next generation or down the organization imbibe? I don't think professionalism and imbibing values are contrarian. One of the pillars of professionalism is good communication, constantly communicate to people, be transparent, honest and straightforward in the way you communicate, but very importantly, in the way you behave every day.
Right.
I think those are the personal sides. And then when we talked about what TVS did by not wanting to take royalty ever, or Tata's by wanting to take royalty, two opposite sides of the same coin. But the purpose was to set this example of purpose. And by setting such a governance model, every employee now knows how they have to behave to be worthy of being an employee of such a brand. So I think these are the 3 or 4 things I can see if from the examples of proven cases across here. India, and I'm deliberately putting India and deliberately putting names which are known, like TVS and Cabin Air and Tatas, because these facets of why somebody charges royalty and somebody does not, uh, or why somebody is extremely well connected and never talks about it, are not by default. They are deliberate. They come by the fact that they believe in a way, a manner in which a business has to run, and a way and a manner in which its people, its employees, its workers, its management, its leadership, and its family needs to behave. And they put it out. So they are not play acting, they are walking the talk. So that's what I'm saying by example, communication. So this is what I think. Human values, transparency, trust, and transparency and trust is not evoked unless you act that way. And when you act, you cannot play act unless you are that way. So I would say that is where I will stop with respect to ensuring or enshrining values with the next generation or with a larger set of people other than you and your immediate line of control. Yeah.
Right. No, so fair enough. Where there are humans, hopefully there'll always be values, and that's something computers won't be able to take away from us, hopefully,
Sure.
and keeps us, you know, keeps. I mean, I think personal values, human values, shall always create togetherness and wealth for generations to come. And but the next topic, and which is very close to my heart, is women in business. Ravi, I do notice that you've not mentioned any. There are no examples of women stalwarts. So I think now it's we have 2 more minutes before we end, and I would like you to speak a few of some remarkable women in this space. We've seen. I mean, we have. We've seen, and we had an all-women's cockpit that flew the longest route around the world, and we have an Arundhati Bhattacharya who's leading Salesforce in her retirement, her post-retirement. You have Kiran Majumdar, Roshni Nadar, who's the chairperson of HCL. So, I mean, I think there are multiple examples, and I would like you to touch upon on some of those, some examples in business. But before that, I mean, I do notice, and I because since when I'm advising families, I still despite women having done so well, right, in various spheres of life, even like what was earlier considered male bastion, there is still reluctance to involve daughters, to involve spouses in decision making. And or even to the extent of entitling them to wealth that is part of the family wealth. So Ravi, that my question to you, and when with besides giving me examples of women stalwarts, is my question to you is there a glass ceiling for female family members in their own family business?
Okay. First of all, apologies if we have not taken examples where the family members or the businesses were started by women, because I personally am never conscious that you need to say that women are part of our society, whether in business or in leadership roles, etc. Because I see women everywhere. I see women in all walks of life, and I'm completely truthful when I say that I believe women add more value to the society in everything that they do, and also in business. They are multi-skilled. They manage. Their multitasking is better, and their ability, their sensitivity, many of the things that we talked about, transparency, trust, leading by example, communication. It's proven, scientifically proven, that women are better communicators. They walk the talk better. Their ability, they are naturally transparent, and they evoke better trust. These are proven issues. So to me, if I had not given those examples, it's an apology is in order, because there is such a long list that you can give, which brings to the fore that women are exceptional, but so it is not. So therefore, there is this Biocon. There is Kiran Majumdar-Shaw. There is Mallika Srinivasan, who runs TAFE, which is a very leading tractor and earth-moving equipment manufacturer in India. She comes from a business family. She's the second or third generation, and of course, she's also part of the TVS group in the sense that she's married to Mr. Venu Srinivasan of TVS Motors. You have examples galore. Recently, there was a Padma Award winner. You had Mrs. Rajni Bector, who turned a family, not even a family, a kitchen experiment. And at one point of time, a necessity to add to the income generation into a $1 billion business, into one of the most successful IPOs 37 years later. So she has proven one thing: A, that family businesses can last long, 37 years, that family businesses can grow, and she can build a family business out of a single person's effort. And on top of it, you can grow from strength to strength and imbibe certain values. So those are all there. But it is necessary, and I think it's a great question you have asked, Pavitra, that in this day and age, while we can skim and say and give the reasons as to why everything is hunky-dory, the question of is there a glass ceiling or not? In my opinion, there is. I think in family businesses, there are possibly more glass ceilings than it is in other areas. There is overall a glass ceiling. The exception I can say today is two people. There is a Pavitra Shetty, with whom I am in conversation, you yourself, and you know how tough, how easy, how relevant and how irrelevant many of those issues were during your career path to reach the leadership position that you are, and what it takes, the strength it takes to be there and doing it. There is Meg, who is from LBN Tech, who I know very well. The kind of multitasking that she does. She runs the technology platform. She runs such kind of shows to bring us all together and provide value to society. She's a member of all. She's an all India head for various activities in global forums. She runs a successful company, and she's also, I'm sure, mother and whatever, all other things. So these are all there. But the glass ceiling exists. In family businesses, it comes from within the families themselves. Without naming, and here I cannot name, barring the one or two which I would say, there are families which believe that whether if you are a male member of the family, you have to get into the business, and if you are a female member in the family, you will not have a position in the business, or you can, but of inconsequential nature. You are not considered as part of the team that will take the business forward equally. I'm talking only of specific instances without giving names. So some of you in the audience may agree, and some of you may say, no, I don't think it applies to us. So that both are fine, but it has happened, whether it is in India, whether it is outside. You only have to read a few Jeffrey Archer books to know what I'm talking about. There is a sequel to Cain and Abel, and then you can see whether it is easy for daughters to take over businesses or not. But closer home, I can only tell a public story of something who did not want to do business, who did not want to be in the family business. And it took a lot of courage on her part, and a lot of courage on the part of the family board after many, many discussions to allow this lady to go her own way, Avantika Birla. She is a musician of repute. She is well qualified to have been part of the family. and be in business, but she chose not to. And it was very difficult for her in her early years to be able to convince and get out of the mold. On the other hand, you have the successful story of the Apollo Group, the healthcare group, Apollo Hospitals, where Dr. Pratap Reddy, the founder, the Apollo Hospitals is now run by his daughters. So Shobna Reddy and others. So there are cases that goes to prove the capability and the ability of women leadership and businesses which are led by them. But that is one half of the story. The other half is there are glass ceilings, and these glass ceilings are there, and the examples can be seen in the way some of the family businesses. If you go and look at deeper, you will find the women members are proudly displayed in the board of directors. Their educational background is provided there. They are all PhDs, or they are engineers, or they are B school products from the best of universities in India and the world. But then you look at what role they are head of communication. I'm not belittling any of these roles, mind you. They are head of communication. They are head of the CSR activities. They are head of their trusts. They are head of this or that. None of which goes to say anything less about those roles that they are discharging. But they are not at the core of the business. They're not handling the core of the business. Whereas if you look at it and match their educational background, maybe they are equally qualified to be doing that roles.
Meglai, can you unmute Ravi?
Ravi, yeah.
Are you able to hear?
Yeah, we can hear, but there's some noise coming from your end, I think.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry for all of you. You can.
No problem. It has stopped now.
It's okay.
It has stopped now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So coming back to that, so therefore there is this discrimination, either in terms of the roles that women would do. I think you would hear the noise once again.
Yeah.
I thought I'm on holiday in Goa. Some people are working. Okay. Yeah. But I think it's getting better. The glass ceiling exists because of what bias we carry as men. I think it is whether you are in family business, or whether you are a banker, or whether you are a promoter, or whether you are a brother or a husband or a father. I think men carry this bias. It's an unfortunate bias. It is slowly dissipating, but it is there. So the Rajni Bectors and the Priya Pauls of the world. Priya Paul, incidentally, is your Park Hotels group in India. Again, comes from a business family. They were tea planters. They owned tea gardens and they were in the tea business. And she completely pivoted from there and started a hospitality brand in the 90s. Very difficult to set up a hospitality brand in India those days. And on top of it, having to face this challenge of being questioned because of the gender itself can put many people out of business. And today Park Hotels is one of the most successful brands in India. Incidentally, in India, 3 brands, not only this, there is the Lalit brand, which is also headed by the chairman, Mrs. Suri is also a part of that early business people who broke the glass ceiling as a woman. So I think these are all great examples to say that it's progressing in the right way, and India possibly is way ahead of the curve of some of the other nations. And I'm not talking about some vague country somewhere. India is possibly ahead of some of the G7 nations in terms of representation of women in leadership roles, whether in public office or in business, and especially in family business today. the family business leads in Germany. Germany is supposed to be amongst the best in Europe in terms of, not best in terms of the number of family businesses. And about 90% of the entire German economy is built around the structure of family businesses. Less than 5% is represented by women businesses. In India, it's 13% of businesses are women-led family businesses. So
That's
and
hard.
then
Yeah,
and you're saying that, and your base number is very high. Your base number is very high. So good things happening. There is glass ceiling. There is an unfortunate glass ceiling,
is also
and it is largely due to the biases that men carry, and that is something that women need not be diffident to talk about. And I am a clear votary of somebody who calls a spade a spade. So it is time not for women to tell why men need to change. It is for men to understand that their time to change has come long past, and we have to do that. Yeah.
no, but
Okay.
thank you for that, Ravi. As we come to the end of our session, I mean, some very interesting stories and examples of labor, capital, and human capital coming, human values coming together, and to create businesses that we've seen today. But I noticed the time, and I'm happy to pass on the.
Yeah, I think we can go in for audience questions now. Ravi, that was very enlightening, and thanks for mentioning me, in the same breath as Pavitra. So I'm honored. And I think we as women, we are probably, my generation is like in the transition period. The future generations, probably the glass ceiling will become non-existent. Already it is sort of the women and the younger women, and they find it a lot easier than what it was for us. So probably my generation is a transition period, and we can hope for the glass ceiling to go away. So thanks for the session. And now I think it is time for the audience questions, and we have a couple of questions here. Divya is asking, what is the expectation from family businesses and promoters from you? That's one question.
Okay, Pavitra, question.
What is the expectation from family businesses and promoters from you?
That's very simple. You see, we discussed today some of the very important areas which we gathered could be of relevance. We come to put that in the family business or promoter looks. They are hard-nosed. Somebody who runs a business is very practical, very down to earth, looks for execution, looks for outcomes. So what do they expect from you? They don't want us to give gyan. They don't want us to give them a 50-page report of what is the problems, what are the solutions. They say, can you please help us get over the problem if there is, or can you execute this for us? They want to reach the end goal. So what do they expect from us? Tell us to articulate what our goals should be, and if we agree and why, what are the reasons. Once we do that, tell us what we should be doing to get there, and how can you help me practically execute that. So they look for support and execution. That's about it. If I have to say anything more, it will not add value. So they are practical people who want somebody to go and get the job done. That's
the job done. Okay.
That simple advisor, consultant, yarn, they don't want. That they can now read and Google, and from so many published reports. Nandita, I am seeing is smiling.
Yeah.
This is the first time I saw her smile at me, so it means that's the first right thing I have said.
That's because all of them had the videos off. So there are lots of comments here, very interesting, and such comments. But one question came to me. The person is not there anymore because of low bandwidth. She's dropped out of the call. But what is the one essential element you need to deliver to meet your client needs? I think she wants both of you to answer that, because we have Pavitra also as one of the experts in this family business. So one essential element you need.
Right. So I think, oh my God, this one element becomes very tough to answer. But what they would, one essential, at least with family businesses, I think essential would be trust. There is this trust, there is, they trust that we have their best interests in mind. While everybody knows, consultants are here for their bread and butter, there is, trust is the underlying thing here, which is most critical. If I were to look at it, I mean, just as simple. Since the question was one, I'll stick to one. I think there's a whole lot of others, but one would be trust.
Trust. Okay. Ravi, you have anything to add here? Then?
I will go along with Pavitra on this, that trust is the first and foremost thing they look for.
Okay.
The skill and competence comes later. I have had the pleasure of a particular instance where I worked with Pavitra on this. The first thing was trust, which is why I was there. And for us, my promoter, the promoter of this group, was very clear that he would like to have the family decide on the trust quotient first before the next. Pavitra led a team which fulfilled both the trust as well as the competency and skill side. I think trust is the biggest thing they look for. And I have to tell you why. And I don't know who has asked this question, but if they come from, there is a reason why trust is very important. These are families which are going to share and bear their innermost thoughts, their innermost fears, their own desires, their own plans, and they might be in conflict with others in the family. They don't want to share this with anybody whom they do not feel completely trustworthy and confidential about. And this is not about signing a contract document or an NDA. This is lifetime, because they might have spoken about something which can have an impact even 10 or 15 years later if you just go and comment about that. So trust it goes along with that confidentiality nature, and it is a lifetime trust. I fully agree with Pavitra on this. I just got a call a couple of days ago inviting me to join a promoter of a group in some exotic location. And he's got in touch with me 3 years or 4 years. Last 4 years, we've not in touch. It's only because there is a trust element in that relationship which ended 5 years back or 7 years back that this call came. And I knew the timing of this call had to do with an event that happened recently, in which he feels very comfortable now to call and invite me. Why am I giving all this? These are lifetime trust quotients we have to honor, which is why in many cases between me and Pavitra, both of us and Pavitra will agree, we can't even say sometimes who our clients are. I mean, I can't even say what is it that we do for our clients. The nature of the role and the nature of the activity is such that the confidentiality, sometimes the promoters or the families bind us to say, we don't even want anybody to know that we are doing such a thing. It could be a very simple thing like a succession planning, but they don't want the world to ever know that they did a succession plan. Yeah. So yeah, trust.
There is one question from Sujata Suresh. She says, fantastic points. Sir, I'm curious to learn about how we can build an L&D organization. I think she can probably connect with you, or you can, brief her as to in a small way in this webinar, because that's something, quite big we cannot answer here.
Yeah, how we can build an L&D organization is how we build any organizations, so to say. But if it comes to the domain of learning and development, I think we should keep it offline. Happy to have a chat with Sujata whenever it is convenient for her. But I think the fundamentals of business are something that we can discuss at any point of time.
Okay. So I think any other questions, anybody? So I think it's time to invite Nandita. Nandita Pandey, I invite you to give the closing comments, a little bit about her. Nandita Pandey, she is India's leading personal branding coach, and she is the Tamil Nadu chairperson, coaching Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce, Wiki, and Tamil Nadu chairperson for Image Management, All Ladies League, a professional speaker and an author, the founder and chief branding strategist of Prismatic Consulting. She's the first image consultant in Tamil Nadu, the first Indian to author a book on power dressing, Dressology, the Science of Power Dressing. That's the name of the book. And she's here with us to deliver the closing comments. I'm so happy to have you here, Nandita. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me here. It was amazing listening to Ravi and very well moderated by Pavitra. So I'll try to sum up whatever has been said in the last 1.5 hours. I hope I'm able to do justice to that. So we had Ravi starting off with the laying the emphasis on why business, family business is important, and right from Japan to Germany we got stories. The most amazing part of this talk for me was there was so many examples that you could pick up from wherein you learned. It's not a Gyan session like Ravi said, so it was not a google.com we were listening to. It was live examples with a lot of relevance to whatever point he was saying. And from Japan to Germany to India, where he spoke about right from the Ambanis to the Adnanis to the SD group. So to A to Y, all the companies is what he had covered beautifully. Difference between a good and not so good organization, the 4 things that Ravi spoke about, one being corporate governance, the second being good management, I spoke about it. Third is, he said, a very valid point is organization is only as good as its people. So if family members don't just park themselves, and I really loved that term, Ravi, and talent is selected for who they are, I think that organizations do well. And the 4th point we mentioned here was relationships, again, can be the differentiating factor. If what has to be done in an organization needs to be done, not because of, and relationship do not come in the way. So those were some beautiful points of good and not so good organizations. And what I gathered from this all the examples of Dabur there and clean, green, healthy there was that governance is the key, which would be a differentiator in the long run for you. How organizations need to keep healthy and keep growing, as a question Pavitra asked, and to keep the trajectory moving. He gave beautiful examples of Baba Kalyani, and I am personally a big fan of his. And he said innovation is the key, wherein, and the way he defined innovation was so beautiful. He said thinking ahead of times. And the words that he used were dreaming big, breaking the mold, and having faith and belief in yourself. So those were that was the way he defined innovation, and Baba Kalyani fitted the bill beautifully, where he automated at a plant which was a mom and pop shop and one of the most automated plants in the country. I've had the privilege of being at Bharat Forge in Pune. And also the second thing that he mentioned was set apart Bharat Forge at that time was actually stepping down and letting his son take over. So not holding on to what he was doing was another very beautiful thing that you need to learn, when to step up and when to step down. Pavitra mentioned some beautiful points that value systems and commitments actually set family-owned businesses apart from corporate. And that is such a nice thing, because most of us who worked in corporate know that we do things very passionately also because we have to do it. Here is a group of people who are committed to their own value systems and they take it forward. So how do you ensure that the next in line or the professionals that you hired to make the organization grow also adhere to those value systems and imbibe those value systems? Let me use that word. And like Ravi said, a bad teacher can't have good students. And the 2 beautiful examples that he gave us there were TVS and Tata Group, of how they are ensuring that they are able to imbibe the value systems that they have in each and every professional that they hire. And they do it by walking the talk, as you say. The brand value is lived by example. And the 3 things that he's mentioned is communication to each and every member. The second he spoke about is transparency, and that is done day in and day out through the behavior, so that people can see it and imbibe, rather than there being some documents on the walls of the organization, right, Ravi? So it's about doing it consistently in your behavior, in your communication, and living those brand values are something that will inspire the professionals who join the organization to live those value systems and take the legacy forward. And he also used a local, I would say a local example of C.K. Ranganathan, who is a very, very known person in Southern India and in Chennai, who is revered here. So very beautiful examples, very relevant examples, Ravi, there. Pavitra brought in my favorite topic of women in business and women in general. And it was a little saddening to know, yes, you do know, but coming from you, it was a little saddening to know, yes, there is a glass ceiling for women in business families. We work on breaking it at the corporate level, but family-run businesses still have that. And you did share examples of women who have broken it and have moved forward, being the Apollo Group and Avantika Birla there. Also that women qualified are not given leading or core heads of businesses is something that was a little saddening. But like Meghu said, maybe it is time that we would, in a couple of years, break those glass ceilings of women in business, and there would be no more glass ceilings of women. And the way you actually brought out the qualities of women, saying that scientifically proven that they are transparent, they're trustworthy, their communication is better, they walk the talk, they're excellent in multitasking, made me actually believe that there is a good hope for women in business going forward. So that is what I could sum up with. And thank you for such interesting examples, Ravi. Really, really amazing examples. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think
that was an amazing sum up. Yes.
Yeah, she summed it up much better than I could talk about any of these.
Sorry about the interruption, but it was beautifully summed up, and your points also added value to it. And it's time to go now. And thanks, Ravi and Pavitra, and especially pulling you out from a vacation in Goa, Ravi. But it was such an enlightening session for us and for the participants here as well too. And thanks for sparing the time and tuning in from across India. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, ladies. Pavitra, Meglai, and Nandita, and viewers, I hope you had a good session. So I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you.
So see you all next session, Ask the Expert session. Probably the end of this month, we'll be having a healthcare insights. So catch you all there, and have a lovely evening, all of you, and a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.